Many times, many times I have referenced President Obama's desire to cut Social Security to forge a grand bargain because my belief that in his administration they perceive this as part of a silo that needs to be filled to ensure a legacy. And I have used as an example the Clinton welfare reform, which, to the extent that it's ever referenced as part of his legacy in the media, it is always referenced as a positive. And people have asked me, will you talk about why it's so bad? Why that welfare reform turned out so bad? And as if on cue, Jason DePaul in the New York Times wrote a piece 2 days ago. Welfare limits left poor adrift as recession hit. Now, the irony is that in all the times I hear about Clinton welfare reform, I don't know if President Clinton's name is being used in this. In a 15-page story. Well, I printed out as 15 pages. But he does write, perhaps no law in the past generation has drawn more praise than the drive to end welfare as we know it. He quotes it, and it was repeated many times by Bill Clinton, which joined the late 90s economic boom to send caseloads plunging. However, this program built its reputation when times were good. He writes, Arizona is one of 16 states that have cut their welfare caseloads further since the start of the recession in 2008. Contemplate this. It just shows you how bad this welfare reform was. We have almost doubled the rate of unemployment. Maybe even more if you want to include the excessive numbers of people leaving the workforce in the past 4 or 5 years. Yet, 16 states have cut their welfare rolls. How is that possible? Even as it turned away the needy, Arizona spent most of its federal welfare dollars on other programs. It was because the federal government changed the way it offered it. The poor people who were dropped from cash assistance here, mostly single mothers, talk with surprising openness about the desperate, sometimes illegal way they make ends meet. They have sold food stamps, sold blood, skipped meals, shoplifted, doubled up with friends, scavenged trash bins for bottles and cans, returned to relationships with violent partners, all with children in tow. The old program was aid to families with dependent children. It gave states unlimited matching funds and offered poor families extensive rights with few requirements and no time limits. The new program, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, created time limits and work rules, capped federal spending, and allowed states to turn poor families away. So you follow the dynamic that's different there. States used to be encouraged to help poor people. Now they're being discouraged. Rules that allowed poor people who are desperate to sign up have now been tightened to make the requirements that much harder. The amount of time they could spend on welfare was capped. Peter Elderman, law professor at Georgetown University, who resigned from the Clinton administration to protest the law, said, my take on it was states would push people off and not let them back on, and that's just what they did. It's been even worse than I thought it would be. When jobs were plentiful in 1996, in the early days of the program, A subset of families appear disconnected, left with neither welfare or work. Those numbers have surged since that time. 1 in 4 low-income single mothers is jobless and without cash aid. Roughly 4 million women and children. One prominent supporter of the tough welfare law, Ron Haskins, a guy who helped write it for the Republicans, is worried that it may have increased destitution among the most disadvantaged families. I'm sorry, this piece was written a year ago, in 2012. The biggest problem with welfare reform, and we ought to be paying attention to it, he said. This is back in 96. The issue is, can you create a strong program as we did without creating a big problem at the bottom? And we have what appears to be a big problem at the bottom. None of this program has worked in the way that it's supposed to. The recession began in 2007, posed a new test to the claim that welfare reform works. Even with $5 billion in new federal funds, caseloads just rose 15% from the lowest level in 2 generations. Compared with the 90s, national welfare rolls are still down by 68%. We've kept people off of welfare, but we have more poor people. More people who are even more desperately poor. More people who are having to go on food stamps to substitute in some way, because that's where the federal government still gives the money. That's why we've seen surges in welfare and food stamps. Some states took new steps to keep the needy away. They shortened time limits, tightened eligibility rules, and reduced benefits so that they wouldn't have to spend more money. The states get fixed federal grants for the poorest people. So any caseload growth comes at their own expense. Federal government pays the entire food stamp bill, so states encourage applications there and just push them off there. So this is an example of how Clinton's welfare reform failed us. And in fact, it's simply being used now as a bludgeon to say people are abusing the food stamps rolls. And yet, it is part of Clinton's legacy that is hailed. That's why the Obama administration is seeking to cut Social Security. Because they know they will get praise for it regardless of its implications. Regardless of how much it devastates people's retirement. Because any reduction in Social Security, you also got to add to the fact that you have reductions in the private elements of people's security. And so all we're going to see is Social Security constituting a greater amount of seniors' income in their retirement in the future, and that amount being less in real dollars.